Wonderful. Hello. We are live, hopefully, and being picked up with sound. So please let us know if you have any issues with the sound, you can't hear us. Please write us a quick message and we will do our best to resolve that. Very sorry for the delay in getting us on here. We've got way too much tech for this operation, but we've done it. We've got the wonderful Ann Diment here, and she is going to do a fantastic showcase of all the incredible work that she's been doing, which I've had a great time exploring. So it is Creative Network. This is our Creative Network for April. It's not a monthly thing anymore, but this particular Creative Network is for the theme of social prescribing. And I met very recently and realized that she is very much working in the field of social prescribing, and I thought should be a wonderful person to share what she does in the world of art as an artist, in the world of social prescribing. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Ann Diment. So
thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Great.
Yeah, so firstly, I just wanted to ask, just a quick to sort of let people sort of have a full understanding of what your description of social prescribing is, if we could start with that.
That's great. I've actually got the official definition here, if you don't mind me checking my notes so I can get it right. But essentially, it's anything that supports health and well-being that isn't medical.
Yeah. But
the official definition, which I'll share, is gosh, here it is. Okay, so it's a person-centered approach, and it could look different for everyone. So basically, it's what supports you, what matters to you, that isn't a prescription or medicine. So for the arts, it could look like a new hobby, accessing a hobby, or a social group, going to a gallery, having a companion to support you doing something creative.
Yeah.
And there's lots of evidence to show that it works. I mean,
yeah.
The trouble with medicine is they have to, obviously, it's evidence-based, but there is so much evidence now. The National Academy for Social Prescribing has done a great job at gathering evidence.
And is it something that's solely done through the NHS, through going to a doctor, or is it something that someone can just seek out for themselves and find?
Well, obviously, you can join a class or group to support your own well-being whenever you like.
Yeah.
The term social prescribing is through the medical model. So it could be a GP, it could be a link worker, social prescribing link worker, it could be a health coach, it could be a community connector or a village agent in Somerset. There's a lovely, I'll share the link afterwards. There's a lovely article on BBC Gloucestershire, and they've actually done the evidence base to show that art lift sessions reduced people with chronic pain visiting the GP by 29%.
Wow.
So, it's been used for all sorts of applications. But I guess people have been doing it without thinking of it as a social prescribing thing, because if it makes you feel good, then
I know I have.
That's it. Yeah.
It was amazing to actually go, actually, what I've put in my own kind of mental health recovery program is right, I need to get out weekly on a good walk, get out in nature, make sure I'm creative as much as possible and not waiting for the right time, and meeting other people, socializing, has had a huge, incredible impact on my mental health in terms of that.
And it's the different ways to well-being. So it's be active, connect, be creative. It's all the things we know look to support our well-being, but creativity, if it's woven into that, the way I tell the people I'm working with, or if I'm coaching people on burnout or anything like that, is our brains work in three different sort of levels. We have our survival brain, which basically our basic survival functions to keep us alive, which is a fight, flight, freeze sort of response. And then we have our emotional brain, which is how do we feel about what's happened, or what's happening to us, or what we are or aren't doing. And then we've got our thinking and creative bit of our brain, which is our prefrontal cortex, which is where you are if you're being creative. So by definition, if you're being creative and in flow, you're in the best bit of your brain rather than being survival or your emotional bit. So it's if you think about it in that way, creativity is so good for your health and well-being.
Absolutely, it's like the best thing, And
looking back to prepare for this tonight, I realised that I'll go into it when I do my talk, but 30 years ago, it is actually 30 years ago, 1994, I was doing outdoor, because I was nature connection and creative activities outdoors in nature with young people. And when that stopped, when I started a family of my own and I was working harder, my mental health deteriorated quite badly. And joining the dots backwards, I realised that's why, because I wasn't doing those activities.
No, exactly. So you may be facilitating it, but you're still reaping the reward of getting out and doing those activities in nature. No, and I said this the other day when we had our surgery session, that working with the young people in Bingham up at the nature reserve. Again, I can come away from that with just absolute full of this. It's a new type of energy that you get from just working with other people in nature and being creative. And
then that's why I describe my practice as socially engaged art rather than as you could be an artist, but my practice is socially engaged art, because it's not about what I create. It's about, as you said, enabling others to create or enabling others to access creative activities. It's very rewarding, and sometimes it's hard to measure that because it's the experience of other people doing the activities you're helping them to connect with. And social prescribing is very much about that. You could have an artist, and I'll describe some of the wonderful artists who I've either commissioned or worked with or participated in their projects. I'll share some examples tonight. And those artists are the sort of spark to enable people to access those activities, but the different experiences of people participating can be very different and also life-changing for some people.
No, I can imagine. Oh, well, great. Well, that's great to give a real insight of what social prescribing is, because it's nice to be clear. So how did you start? How did you get into social prescribing?
Well, as I said, looking back, I realised it was over 30 years ago. There was a project. I did my degree in applied biology, which, there was a little bit of creativity in there. I did GCSE science, which, didn't think of myself as an artist. Went to did my first degree, went to Scotland to do my master's degree in water resource management, and met a wonderful group of people connected with the Duke of Edinburgh Award and the John Muir Trust and John Muir Award, and they were setting up a thing called the Green Team. And it's a project that connects, initially it was connecting young people with nature, and it was an award based on the Duke of Edinburgh Award, but it was your award levels were based on your time spent in nature.
Really?
And so we took young people out across Scotland, all wonderful places across Scotland. We had some really great adventures. Some kids had never left the city, like Edinburgh, Glasgow, the inner city, really sort of kids who'd never been out of their town or city before. And we introduced environmental art activities.
Wow.
And it was fascinating. It was wonderful, and just getting them to connect with the landscapes and the people who around the landscapes, but through the power of art,
So you say, but before that, you wouldn't have described yourself as an artist. You were more in the science.
More scientist. I mean, there was some creative activities in the science degree about drawing things, observational activities, so drawing things down a microscope. But I didn't ever connect that with being an artist.
Right.
So that was that. And then went on to have a family, as you do, and did creative things with my kids. I've got some, let me just go down and show you this. So most of my practice is about connecting with nature, and it runs through it. So this is the Green Team. So this is what they do, and they're still going 30 years later, and they've expanded to help adults, and they've done so much great work in helping young children. So if you can check out the Green Team, they're amazing. So how did I become an artist officially?
Yeah.
Well, that was 1995 till about 2000, the Green Team and doing that. And then didn't do anything really for a few years. And ironically, with my mental health challenges, I had really, really, really bad period of mental health in 2012. And I was unable to leave the house pretty much. I was so ill.
Yeah.
Combination of work stress and PTSD, which, you know, from my previous life experiences.
Yeah.
And one day the local art club were in my local library, which is just across the road from my house. And I thought, oh, I might go and try that. So I went along and had a fantastic time playing with the watercolours, no pressure. And I realised that was the first time for a long time that my head had been calm. I was in the front part of my brain, not in the emotional and racing thoughts brain. And an elderly neighbour was there, and she said, oh, I'd love to carry on with this club, but I can't drive anymore. I've got diabetes. I've had to get my driving licence. And I said, well, I'll give you a lift. I'm off work at the moment. I was signed off sick. Yeah. So I gave her a lift as a favour. And actually, it was the best thing I could have done because I enjoyed it so much. Yeah. Just that 2 hours a week, just immersed in art and learning and using, you know, learning new skills, connecting with people, enjoying, no pressure, just doing what I wanted to do. And I ended up changing my working hours when I went back on phased return to take that half day a week just to do the art club because I knew that was what was going to support my mental health. And a year later, that painting, as you can see, the first painting here, the mountains, that was my first ever acrylic painting. Wow. It was done with a tutor, but I was so proud of it. It was like my first ever painting. And within a year, the middle two paintings were shown at a local exhibition. And this one was my first sale. So that was within a year of joining the club. So I thought of myself as an artist. Yeah, great. And at that exhibition, actually, this is an example of social prescribing. The Big Draw, still going, the Big Draw, isn't it? The project every year they're trying to get people involved in art. Yeah. And at that exhibition, they invited 12 artists to take a random square of this wonderful painting by Sir James Guthrie of the Hind's Daughter, and we all got given a random square. So this one was my square here, and 12 people sat in the same room with the same paints, and we had to paint our square within a 2-hour period. Wow! And then we went away for a cup of tea. Yeah. And while we went away for a cup of tea, they hung the paintings together, and this is what we produced. Oh, that's amazing. And that was probably my first experience of the power of art as a collective, and that was in the exhibition. So yeah, it just demonstrated to me that in a couple of hours you could make this, and the energy in the room, we were all creating together at the same time. We only had the same palette of paints, and we all produced all these different things and all connected together. I love that. So that to me was, oh, I really like this. So unfortunately, that was the last thing I did in Scotland because we had to relocate to Somerset, and that was the last thing I did. So I had to leave those paintings that I just showed you behind, and they were donated to the art club and raffled to support the art club. Yeah. And then I moved to Somerset. And 4 years later, because life got very busy and caring roles and all the other things that get involved with life, I'd been doing a couple of art courses. Kerry Louise Morton-Thomas is a brilliant artist, mindfulness teacher, coach, counsellor. She does a lot of really good work in prisons and in the community. She's amazing. I'd attended some of her art and mindfulness classes to support my own well-being. And it made me think, actually, I want to do this. I'd like to do more of this. Yeah. So Viv Gordon, I don't know if you know Viv, she's brilliant. She does a lot of work for sexual violence survivors, survivors of childhood sexual abuse. She ran a company called Mean Feet Dance in Glastonbury. Yeah. And I did a few like fun dance things with her and things like that. And she was running, she had funding for arts practitioner training. Okay. And that was really good. It went through the whole process of how to set up an art group, how to run it safely, how to manage it, how to set up events, and supported you through the process of setting up your own community art group. That's brilliant. It was really, it was amazing. And the best bit about it was that everyone on that course, we all helped each other develop our ideas. So it was collaborative.
Yeah.
And we supported each other in our test events. So we had to run an event as a practice. So we all went along to each other's events.
Yeah.
So I was really lovely. And this string painting was one of them. Aidan, who was a primary school art teacher, he ran that session. And I ended up doing what I felt was my strength at the time, was doing like crafty things. So it was paper flowers, workshops and origami, just easy family friendly things. I ran a few events around Glastonbury. And then I went on, because I was at the time, because juggling caring and work and everything else, I was managing West Pennard Village Hall as one of my jobs. One of my many jobs I've had in the last few years. And I decided to run, because I was involved in music as well. I started to get involved in music as a performer as well at that time. Set up a Pennard Acoustic Cafe. What the model was with people come along and have a cup of tea and some cake. Sunday afternoon, we'd have space for performing. It was meant to be a space for particularly younger artists to come along that wasn't a pub, because most open mics are in a pub. And I didn't want it to be I wanted it to be a space where young people who come along, or less experienced performers to come along and not feel intimidated by having to walk into a pub if they didn't want to. And it was in a Sunday afternoon, so it was family friendly. And as a mother, I know that if you're doing one thing, you have to keep the kids occupied. So I had a table set up with all these craft activities and all the stuff I had out, and I sort of helped supervise the craft activities, and my husband ran the music bit. And then we, to inspire the performers, we had a more experienced performer come along and do a sort of showcase at the end. So we had like an hour and a bit of, is that okay? Is it still working? Is it still working? Yeah. Sorry, Deb, I must have put it in your ear. So we had about an hour and a bit of people doing open mic to come along and practice. And then we had how do you say, headline performer come along with some really brilliant musicians come along and support the event. That was lovely.
Fantastic.
So I ran that for a little while until it became unsustainable, self-funding and managing everything myself.
Okay.
So that was the experience of that. Shall I continue?
Yeah, I wish that was still continuing.
I'd love it to be continuing. I'd love to bring it up, but I say I couldn't really fund it myself, because we were making the cakes, buying the tea and coffee, providing the art materials, providing the people. We're doing everything, and our time as well. It was the whole family involved, my children and my husband as well. So it was a bit too much to get us to do it.
Yeah, I love that concept of music and art.
It was great. It was lovely. We had some really lovely sessions.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So while I was doing all that, I was juggling work and family and kids and things, and my job was health and safety. Okay. So living in a rural village in Somerset, trying to manage school runs and everything else. It was hard. I did get a job in 2015 with Health Connections Mendip, which everyone knows. They are modelling social prescribing after the Bromley by Bow example in London. Bromley by Bow were the leaders in social prescribing, and Jenny Hartnell and the team at Health Connections Mendip brought it to Somerset, and they've expanded it across Mendip and also the model across whoever else they've shared it with. And I was actually a health connector, so that's where the social prescribing and the community connection actually strengthened in my practice. Because I realised the power of connecting with communities and how wonderful creativity in all forms could be. So the music and the art and everything else. So that was 2015, 2017 of the art course. 2018, I guess it got to a point, there was a lot of things going on at home with family and things like that, and health and safety consultancy basically became quite stressful and quite unsustainable because I was doing a lot of travelling. And I realised, actually, I just need to take a break. And I had a grown-up gap year. So I applied to Strode College and decided to do a art and design foundation. And so I started that in 2019, and obviously now 2019 to 2021, we all know what happened in that time. So all the stuff here is really about what I did in that time at Strode, because it basically allowed me the space to consolidate all the stuff I'd done before, identify as an artist, and bring in the health and safety and well-being bit to allow my own process in healing. And I did a lot of that during the course. And then funnel it all into pretty much what I'm doing now.
Wow. That's an amazing journey, to go from the more science kind of background and then working in the sort of outdoor environment with the young people, doing and seeing these art activities, leading on to the training to run art workshops. That's fantastic. And then connecting that with then your health and safety work.
Because I did a lot of training in that as well, so I could see how we could apply it all. Just checking my notes if I've forgotten anything. What I didn't say at the beginning was I mentioned I got PTSD, but I only really recently found out in January that I've actually got ADHD as well. So a lot of the stuff I've done here and a lot of the many things that I've done actually make complete sense because I've got so many things. So I apologise if I talk too quickly or flip from one thing to another because that's just how my brain works, and I'm owning it. So Strode was brilliant. I mean, it was so supportive. I started it when I was 48, which going into college with a bunch of 17-year-olds at age 48 is quite hard because everyone thought I was their mum. So I did have a nice time at Strode, but obviously, it was very much head down and just enjoy the process because I had the luxury of 2 years to do it rather than one, which, I did it part-time. And really, really nice, expansive time. And quite a few of my friends of similar age have actually gone and done the same course since because oh my God, you had a great time. So I can highly recommend it if you're a woman of a certain age and you just want to take a break. So
Well, I'm keen to.
So this is the essence of what I distilled the 2 years. I will show you a little bit more, but basically this allowed me to identify A, as an artist, and B, to identify of what art means to me, and also to help start asking others what art meant to them. And that was all part of my creative process. And was one of the pieces from my final major show, and you can see like I've done the moth, which is where I was cocooned trapped in my health and safety identity, and not. The biggest thing I learned during this process was it's okay to make mistakes. That's the one thing I learned, because health and safety, you can't make any mistakes. No way. And that becomes your identity. It becomes your identity as an individual. You're scared of making mistakes. You're scared of standing out. And especially now I know with ADHD as well, it's like, I don't want to stand out, and you're masking a lot. This, all the stuff in my head. And this actually, the butterfly bit was from the Chrysalis project, which the butterfly with dementia project, which I'll show a little brief about, because that was one of the projects I really shared to get more people involved in art. And these words are the words from people who I asked what art means to them. So it's bringing it all together, really. And similar words would come from people and taking part in other social prescribing projects as well. So one of the things I did, Somerset Recovery College are a brilliant organisation working across Somerset. They work on the model of empowering people who are going through a process of recovery to participate, but also to move through their recovery journey and actually have a say in how the classes are run, which I think is amazing. And I benefited from a wonderful art and poetry class, which is still running actually. Laura Merritt is a brilliant creative writing tutor, and Suzanne Partridge was the person I was there when I was there. And what we'd do was Laura would read a poem, and then she'd pick out a few lines from the poem and we'd do free writing based on that line. So we'd start developing our writing practice. And then we had time to either carry on writing or do art based on it. So I've got a whole sketchbook here of poetry and art and things based on those sessions. And that was so wonderful to do that, because it opens up your creativity. And this poem, Creative Recovery, was basically the spark to develop the rest of my project. And it's sort of kind of talking about social prescribing, because it's talking about connecting with family and friends or chatting to neighbours, giving you boosts of happy hormones. That's really what art and creativity does. So I took one of my watercolours and used that as a background. And this poem was taken, I entered it into, I'll show it in the next slide. I entered it into CEDA, which is a Disability Arts Association, during lockdown. Amanda Lynch, who's created lots of collaborative projects. She prompted that, and that went into a CEDA Arts exhibition. But the YouTube video, which obviously you can have the links there, but I'll share the link.
Yeah.
I was a Time to Change mental health champion because of my own lived experience. And this poem, me reading this poem, was used in a film which Somerset Film made, actually. Somerset Film made that? Yes. Yeah. Somerset Film made that, and this poem was used in that film as well, with Time to Change champions talking about the importance of talking about our mental health.
Yeah.
So again, art connecting and help supporting well-being. That's just where the triptych, this is my end of year show to read. And the sad thing about this is actually, this was like just as we were emerging from lockdown, and only 2 people were allowed from each family. So I could only bring my husband and my friend to see it. So not many people saw this. Yeah. But just to point out, that poem, Creating Recovery, I created an audio file with I captured voices of people, artists who said what art means to them, and the recording's online. And I put it into this tree that I made as an audio experience. So you put your head in the tree and you've heard the poem with lighting. So it's sort of a sensory experience. Yeah. The triptych was there. This skull, nodding to Leonardo da Vinci, had obviously the mask on, but writing on there is mirror writing, so you could only see it if you looked in the mirror. What art means to me. And this piece on the left here, I did a lot of ceramics as well, but this piece on the left here was a co-created piece. With the first week we were allowed back into college after lockdown, I put this piece of wallpaper up with this was a tracing of me lying down on the floor. And I invited the other students and staff to co-create a piece of artwork with me to say how it felt to be back in college, because that was the first time we'd all been back in college together. Yeah. So that's what that piece is.
So how much of the course was it mainly done online?
Yeah, it was done online. Yeah, Zoom calls, and it was quite challenging. I mean, it was quite challenging for the tutors and for the students, actually. Yeah. So the first year was in person, and the second year was mostly online. Yeah.
Okay, so at least you got the starting.
Yeah, but the young people who are doing it full time in the second year, they did it all online, so I felt really bad for them.
I can't imagine how to do your entire. It's such an important stage of your education.
That connection is really important. So that's why I felt that was quite important. It doesn't look like much, but that was a really important piece of work, because it captured the excitement and actually joy of being back in college. So,
brilliant.
So. I won't go into too much about this, but more poetry was my way of expressing all the stuff in my head. And coming out from this Somerset Recovery College class, one of the poems they asked us to read was "Forget the Past." And obviously, if you're processing things and you want to process things, this is a wonderful poem by Steve Taylor. So I wrote my own poem in response to that, and that sparked a whole load of other work. And this is just one part of that piece about the impact of living with an alcoholic parent, inspired by a Picasso piece. Linking that with genealogy charts and symbols. And I recorded that as a sound file, audio file as well. Performance piece. And that turned into this memory cushion, this chair, which actually sits in my room. And this was one of the pieces. And this rocking chair was my husband's grandmother's chair that had been sat in an old wood barn for actually since 1971, since the year I was born. It's been sat there for decades, unloved. Yeah. So I made new cushions for it. So it's connecting with my husband's grandmother. The fabrics were his mother's, all scraps of fabric, old duvet covers from 1970s and things. And each panel, so each of these 5 panels is a different decade of my life and key. So it's me choosing how to tell my story through stitch, photographs, printed, key elements and things like that. So that was a really, really powerful piece of stitch. And I linked this to the red dress, Kirsty MacLeod's, and the AIDS blankets, and all those things which stitch and sewing clubs and things could help somebody unlock their health challenges or their trauma. So this sits in my room and reminds me every day. So you sit in the present, the lotus flower rebirth, and you rock back to the past. So that was one of my projects.
Oh, fantastic.
And I've taken part in quite a few projects. So Be Kind to Your Mind was another theme here. And I was working for Somerset Local Foods during lockdown, and this was the vegetable bags that we had plenty of.
Oh, yeah.
So I just repurposed that, put it over an old frame and started processing emotions and in stitch and dissolvable fabric and things like that. This was all done during lockdown. Again, masking. Behind the mask and behaviours. And then Lockdown Voice is another poem, but this was done a collage and a poem about lockdown voices. And this was entered the Sounds from Home exhibition, which was that Amanda as well? I think that was Amanda. Yeah, I think it was Amanda Lynch. And then that led into making a film called Hope, which I've got the link now. I don't know if I've got time to play it, but as a musician, one of the big connection things is playing at gigs and playing at festivals, and that stopped in lockdown. And many, many musicians struggled, and performers in general struggled because they didn't have that. You have a festival family, you have a family of people you see at all the different events, and it was really, really hard. Online gigs aren't the same. They're just not the same. And the first gig we got to do in lockdown was in Bridport. Bridport Town Council did this socially distanced festival where there was big squares marked out in the grass in front of the town hall building. In fact, people had to have their picnic. They weren't allowed to go over the squares. And it was really, really surreal. But oh my God, everyone was so happy. And I got these masks, which had a clear panel in front of them. And it was really weird because so people could still see you talking, you know, but they all steamed up. It was really, really weird. But anyway, I made a film and all this other work and got my friends and festival family friends to send in a bit like the Bob Dylan thing with how you feel. So this person saying, I'm not viable, that's Rob. And I used Keith Haring as an inspiration to do the little cartoon figures here. Because Keith Haring's work was very much around communicating health issues and health and well-being. So that I made this film called Hope using one of my husband's songs called Hope, and a little film combining animation, my friends saying I'm not viable, and with the word hope, and that was a really nice project to connect with the festival family and friends, and also the power and actually to communicate what it means for people to actually connect through music and art.
So music, it's same sort of lineage with your art, or were you a musician before you then became an artist, or did that sort of...
No, funny story of music. Just when we were about to move to Somerset, it was quite a traumatic move because my mother-in-law had cancer and we had to literally move quite quickly, to Somerset. It was quite a big upheaval in 2013. That exhibition was on, the exhibition I showed you at the beginning. Yeah. That's why I couldn't collect them, because my pictures were hanging in the exhibition and the next week we moved and I couldn't pick them up. Right. So they had to stay behind. Yeah. So my husband had been playing music and I hadn't any involvement in it, and he decided to record some before we moved. And the person recording it said, we'll put some tambourine on this. And he was playing the recordings back and said, if we're going to move and I'm going to carry on music, can you play tambourine? I went, well, I don't know. So I went and got my kids' early learning centre clipped together tambourines and just kept time. Oh, great. And there we go. I was in the band. That was my audition. And that's it. Yeah. And I'm in 2 bands now. So I've been performing for 10 years. Last 10 years I've been performing. Yeah. Can you let the people know what they're called? Because it was a band called John D. Revelator, but unfortunately our very good friend passed last year, so that band is no more. Because we had to read that. So I feel a bit embarrassed saying this. The band with my husband is called Gert Dog. It's about the Gert Black Dog of Somerset. Okay. It's the good spirit that gets travellers home if they're lost on the Quantock Hills. Yeah. And there's a link to that Quantock Poets thing that are there. And the other band that I'm in is a band called Muddy Summers and the Dirty Field Horse.
Oh, wow.
Which we released a single, animated video, which Gail, my colleague, writes all the songs, and she released a beautiful animated video about living with ADHD.
Right.
It's called Doombox. We released that in January. So there's a big plug for that. This is what we're on to now. Is that right? We've got time for this? Yeah, this is so fun. Yeah, okay. Thriving Communities Somerset. So I finished my art course, and I'd literally just hung the end of year show, and my friend had shown me this advert for a job. I wasn't looking for a job. I just wanted a little break to process the art. I thought, oh, this looks interesting. Just a little rewind. 2017, there was an all-party parliamentary report on the arts and culture for health and well-being. It was a very important report, and that led to the setting up of the National Academy for Social Prescribing, and that's a collaboration of Arts Council England, English Heritage, lots of key national policy-making organisations.
Yeah.
NASP were given a pot of funding to fund 50 projects across the UK, and Somerset were very fortunate to get this. So I was appointed as Creativity and Wellbeing Coordinator to run the project. It was typical with these sorts of projects. 12-month project. I was recruited 2 months in, so I had 10 months to deliver a 12-month project.
Oh.
Yeah, Deb knows. Deb knows. So there you go. So this, what I'm going to show you is what we achieved in 10 months.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, so it's basically about creating communities using creativity and nature to boost well-being. So exactly what we've been talking about all the way through.
Yeah.
So in 10 months,
wow,
this is what we did. We created the foundations for future work by tackling a disconnect between services, which was not happening before the project. So we grew and strengthened networks, and this is what we did. So I commissioned 7 activities, not all arts and nature-based, but 7 activities throughout the thing, which these films were all made about the projects that we commissioned. And Somerset film made most, well, no, a young filmmaker called David Jenkinson, actually, he just graduated, and it was really good work experience, really good experience for him to get some of these films. He came and filmed our events. So that was that. So we did group sessions, we had networking events, and we basically got everyone talking about the benefits of nature and well-being, and nature and art and well-being. So I'm going to show you a couple of the projects. So one of the projects with Kerry Louise Morton Thomas, who I mentioned earlier, she worked with Will Freeman at brain's gone. Wetlands and Wildfowl Trust, Sturt Marshes.
Yes, no, well, yeah.
Coffee's not working. And they ran a beautiful project on the Meads in Bridgewater, here in Bridgewater, where we are now, which was art and mindfulness. Yeah. So they were in a church and did some mindful creative activities, and then they went out in the Meads and were inspired by nature, and they also connected with Sturt Marshes. And this is just some of the quotes from the people who were in the course. Well, actually, I think this was from Kerry, but you can see the impact it had on people about their mental health. And some of the people who participated in this project actually went on to volunteer at Sturt Marshes, which I think is brilliant for people, residents of Bridgewater, who've never even had the chance to go out to Sturt Marshes, actually connecting with that beautiful space and actually ongoing ripple effect of supporting other people. Yeah, so that's wonderful. That was Meads and Marshes. And the other one was the Wellington Art Group, connecting two projects that were already going. It wasn't anything new we created, we just linked them together. So Somerset Wildlife Trust were running the Nature Connections project, and Wellington Mind in Somerset were running an art group in Wellington, and they were struggling after lockdown to get people to come back, basically. Yeah. So it was about reigniting the group. And they had, so Hannah Earle made a film about this, beautiful film, and Hermione Toulson from Somerset Wildlife Trust and Liz Gregory ran the art sessions. And they basically connected the existing art group and took them out into the Black Downs and connected with the local nature around and got people to really think about well, you know, what's that tree look like, or how would we represent that tree? And so we've got some. We had a wonderful celebration event, and what was wonderful about this was, I think it's a Green Days. It's an adults with learning disabilities. They also joined the group, and it was wonderful to see the connection, the participation. And I went along. Obviously, I had no excuse to go along and join an art group, but I had a great time. We were drawing leaves and making invitations to the end of project celebration event.
Fantastic.
So that was great. And it's a bit wordy, but this basically was we were funded by Arts Council England managed the funding for the projects. We had to do all the reporting to them, but we were chosen as a case study by NASP, and we were evaluated by their external evaluators. And this, you know, there's some really important stuff here. It was only 10 months, and the projects I told you, they cost under £3,000 each. And if you think about it, the amount of people who it helped, and the impact on the health service, like I just said, the Gloucestershire one, 29% reduction in GP visits. Well, how much does a GP visit cost?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling that people aren't doing this more. And so basically what this is saying is we need to support the, I don't know if I've put the slide in actually. No, I haven't. What I shared in the end of Project Celebration was the doctors and the link workers are like the travel agents telling people where to go. Yeah. But the destinations are the groups and the organisations and the facilities. They're the destinations. If they're not supported to stay open or to keep running, there's going to be nowhere to send people. No. So it's really, really important that we support these people who are running these activities. Yeah. So that's what I'll get off my high horse now. So, shall I just share briefly a few of the projects I participated in, just as examples of collaborative? Okay. Yeah. So these all took place whilst I was doing the art course. Obviously, I was trying to take part in as many art activities as I could, and obviously it was during lockdown. So Eleanor Matthews works in the northeast of England in County Durham, and she did this brilliant project, which I think could be replicated in Somerset so easily. Street gallery. And she invited artists, which I was fortunate to be one of them, to send in an art piece inspired by the brief. And obviously, this Dordon is an ex-colliery town. Okay. And I'd moved from Scotland. I'd lived in, and the place we'd lived was Newton Grange, which was a Scottish mining town. Yeah. And I just thought I'd love to get involved in this. So we all sent in our pieces, posted them, and houses hosted these pieces in their windows. And people were invited this map to walk along their street, connect with their neighbours, look in the gallery, and also create art of their own inspired by the artwork. That's brilliant. And it was like such a simple idea, but so brilliant. And it cost, I don't know how much, it cost pennies. It didn't cost very much. I mean, we didn't, you know, we just sent the artwork. That was it. Yeah. But what a brilliant way to connect communities together. A really great way. I say Window Wonderland's the same thing. Those sort of projects, you know, it's so easy. Well, it is, because it's amazing what parts of your own place where you live you haven't explored yet. Exactly. Like you might go, I know how to get to the shop, I know how to get to the bus, but actually, if you go around this corner and there's a little cul-de-sac, they've got it's just a beautiful spot. But like having a little trail that actually gets you exploring where you live. And also starting conversations, because what does this mean? Well, it's it's linking, because in this was made about my experience of living in Newton Grange, because we have this wonderful we have the Scottish Mining Museum there, so we have the wonderful wheel, and this was representing that, and the sort of the black gold, and things like that. So that, and it was just starting a conversation about what this could mean something completely different for somebody else. So it was really, really great to be part of that. And Ellen Matthews has been doing some brilliant work. One of the things she also connected me with was Durham University, who, funny connection, Durham University don't actually teach art. They don't teach art at all. That's not one of the programs they offer. But every year they have an art competition and invite, because they're encouraging their staff and students to be creative as a well-being practice. Yeah. And it's brilliant. And they do summer in the city, and they have so many creative talks. They've got a fantastic art collection at the Oriental Museum. Yeah. And I actually know this because when I was still in my health and safety days, I was somehow, I don't know how I managed it, I was a university biological safety officer for Durham University, commuting from Glastonbury. There you go. So for 6 months, I was covering the role of biological safety officer. So I was going to Durham quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew very well what they'd offered. And so I thought it was very funny that 2 years later, I'd be going back running art workshops for Durham University for Summer and City Festival. So this is just the piece I created. But I actually ran sessions. And the beauty of this, it was all done online because it was on during lockdown. Around heroes, so the theme of heroes. So obviously NHS heroes was the big thing during lockdown. Yeah. So this was about who's your hero, and it was getting people to take them through the process. So inspired by film posters or other posters to say who's your hero and develop their own poster to show who their hero was. And the beautiful part of this, anyone could attend this. It didn't have to be from Durham. And I had a woman from America who basically spent a whole day on Eventbrite classes just to connect with people. She was on her own. Yeah. And a young boy from South Africa. Wow. And people from the UK, all sharing who their heroes were. Yeah. And I just thought that was beautiful. So there you go. That was wonderful. Poetry. Yeah. One of the projects that I commissioned during the Thriving Communities Somerset project was wordplay, which was Take Art. Okay. And Live Talk was the facilitator with Johnny Fluffy Punk, as his stage name is, and Chris Redmond. And that was brilliant. I mean, I can't describe to you the feeling of seeing a lady who'd been in hospital for 6 months with quite serious long-term illnesses, being able to participate in poetry from her hospital bed on a Zoom call. Yeah. And even at the performance, the end of project performance we did in Yeovil, she was able to live stream from her hospital bed. And she said she couldn't see her kids, she couldn't see her family, but she could still connect with poetry for this. So she was expressing, and Live as a brilliant way of working with people to describe what your health condition or health challenges are in a way that isn't. She has a brilliant way of allowing you to express what it means to you in a different way. So it's empowering rather than traumatizing. Yeah. Yeah. And one of the other projects so I got involved with Live and wordplay, and I did it for my own well-being, but also obviously as a commissioner. So I stayed in touch and did several poetry projects online during lockdown, which was brilliant. And one of the things that came out, and I actually was there on Saturday at the Lyra Poetry Festival, Liv and Chris had a conversation in a field in Glastonbury 3 years ago, saying that they'd listened to a poem about climate change, and they said, "Oh, I'm sure we could do this better." And that has led to amazing things. Hot Poets has done some brilliant work. Yeah. And COP26 in Glasgow, they went along and worked with scientists. 12 poets worked with climate scientists and the Met Office to communicate climate change messages through poetry, and made films. And that's, oh my God, they've gone to COP27, COP28. They've influenced governments to make some really significant changes. Yeah. What you need to see what they've done. And one of the projects that sparked from that was Hot Poets Sparks, where 40 other poets, including myself, were invited to write poems about things that were passionate to us, about environment and climate change. This was a whole programme, and they were published in this book. And I wrote about the thing I did my master's degree on, which ironically was water resource management, which was sparked by a conversation. It all fits together. It was sparked by a conversation during the social prescribing project with somebody from English Nature. English Nature are employing people to do social prescribing to reduce water pollution. Now, the link there is, if you take less antidepressants, they don't go into the water streams. So my poem was about that. Right. So it all fits together. Yeah. Yeah, it's called Minnows of the World Unite, and it was about basically if we look after ourselves differently through social prescribing, we take less medications, and we drink less micropollutants in our water, because everything we excrete goes into rivers, and obviously more so now we won't go into water companies, but
I've never thought of that.
And whatever goes into the rivers comes back to our water supply. But the thing is, the filters in the water treatment systems can't filter out the pharmaceuticals.
Really?
as well. So I say we're microdosing on humanity's pain. So basically, not only we have got microplastics in our water, we've also got trace quantities of whatever pharmaceuticals or prescription or non-prescription drugs that go into the water stream.
Yes, which is increasing.
Yeah,
really,
so the power of creative practice, as in poetry, and there's been this book, 44 poems in this book, and they cover all sorts of topics. And actually, the original Hot Poets books, not this one, the first one, the Hot Poets book, Chris and Liv on Saturday, they said that in Switzerland, a university in Switzerland are using it in their English courses to help students with eco-anxiety. So they're getting them to read these poems to learn English to help them with their eco-anxiety.
Wow.
So it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
So they've done some brilliant work, Liv and Chris,
and
the other Hot Poets. There's 12 Hot Poets. Other projects, Banners of Chard. So sorry, forgive me, my brain has gone. Jenny Mellings, Somerset Artworks, Jenny Mellings. She sent out a call saying, anyone want to help us? We're doing it with Holyrood Academy and other the Chard Watch group in Chard, which is a peer support group, to create these beautiful banners to hang in the Guildhall. But they've gone on tour. These are them at the Octagon. And we'd love people to, so the young people and the groups designed the banners, all relating to history of heritage of Chard. And they asked people to sew parts of it.
Yeah.
So I contributed a few bits. I haven't actually seen these in person yet. I've not been seen. So that's a really good example of everyone contributing to a group.
So they're somewhere now. You can.
They were at the Octagon.
Yep.
They were at Somerset Artworks at Crewker Museum, and I believe they're back in Chard with Chard Town Council now. But but they've been all over the South Somerset area.
Yeah, great.
So yeah. And Seed Sedgemoor. How can I not mention Seed Sedgemoor? They've done so much social prescriber work, it's unbelievable. But I'm going to mention Fiona Campbell's piece here in 2021. This was an album cover. I just did a liner print for an album cover for one of the bands that I'm involved with, the Pipistrelles. And I just repurposed that to do these collages. And this is from my college work, a rubber from a piece of work. And it was gone on the buses, on the... so that link here, beautiful. I haven't got a picture of it. Fiona created a lenticular image on Somerset buses. It was a chameleon. You remember it, don't you? Yeah. And it was amazing because every time I saw it on the bus, everyone sent in, they called all the colours. So we all sent in pictures with a specific colour theme to go along this picture of a chameleon. Okay. And Fiona I don't know how she created it. She created this brilliant image. So when you looked at it from different angles, the colours changed like a chameleon. So for, I don't know, about 6 months on all the buses of Somerset, there was these beautiful pictures of chameleons with everyone's pictures.
Oh, great idea.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. And that was a brilliant crowdsourced art piece. So that was that. I think that's it. Why is it not going? What have I done there now? I think that was the last slide. That was the last slide. So that's just a taste of all the things I've been involved with. But as you can see, there've been so many opportunities in Somerset. There's so many artists. And the one thing I didn't actually mention, if you don't mind, was sorry. Was this one of the projects in the Thriving Communities Somerset was called Postcards for Recovery, and that's Caroline Barnes, who works in Yeovil Hospital. And we thought that Caroline's idea was people get discharged from hospital and they get, village agent or somebody go around, here's your milk, here's your cup, here's some tea bags, here's some milk. There you go, you're home now. Yeah. And Caroline's beautiful idea was to create these art activities, which there are 7 postcards, which was designed by Caroline. So Postcards for Recovery. And each postcard has a different activity on the back. So this one is your own desert island discs, and they're designed to have a conversation or to help the person have a conversation with whoever's coming in to care for them or back in with somebody from their community. Yeah. And connect with nature. So it was like looking out your windows and shadow puppets. You know,
amazing.
just things to get people back into their community and back home. And, you know, these boxes have got the postcards, they've got pencils, they've got envelopes so you can send a letter to somebody. They've got, sketchbook, glue, you know, basically everything you need to have 7 days or more of creative activity to help you settle home and feel well and connected. I haven't found out since I left how these got on, but they were going to be distributed through care homes and through discharge teams. Yeah. And the funding from the community project funded 250 of these boxes. So hopefully 250 people were helped with these things.
Oh, fantastic.
And the final thing, I don't know how much time we've got, but the final thing is Quantop Poets. I've put these on the chair, but Quantop Poets has been the project I've been involved in the last 2 years. Ralph Hoyt, and he's an audio located poet. Well, he's a poet, but he does audio located poetry.
Yes, we spoke about him. Yeah, there's a great talk on Pervasive Media on their YouTube about how he works as a audio location poet. It's really exciting.
So this is basically Quantop Land Partnership Scheme. Obviously, their role is to create partnerships and get people to engage with and support people living in the Quantops.
Yeah.
And basically, they funded this project, and 12 poets, got together 2 years ago in a bookshop in Taunton, and agreed to join this, and basically went out for walks in the Quantocks, in the footsteps of Coleridge and Wordsworth, you know, starting in Stowe and other places, and then we wrote poetry. And then Ralph did all the tech stuff, and we had lots of discussions, and we selected poems. Over 130 odd poems were written by all of us in the end. I only wrote 3. Some other people were far more critical than I was. And we've taken part in the Exmoor Walking Festival. We've done. It led to a Words in Watch It book fair.
Okay.
The first one this year. There's been performances at East Quay. There's been lots of things. But the main thing is we've got these trails. We've got 7, I think. They're on here. Yeah. Which have QR codes and an app that Ralph organises, and you can download the app on your phone, use the QR code to download that particular trail. And if you go to watch it on Nether Stowey or Kilve or other parts of the Quantops where these trails are, you can put your headphones in, and when you're walking, you will receive poems at different parts. They're geolocated poems, so wherever you are, this poem will appear in your head. So the poets obviously had the experience of that, but also we're hoping it'll get people more active, getting out in the Quantops, and bringing people into the area and appreciating, because as Bill from Quantop Land Partnership said at the event the other week, Wordsworth was known as the founder of Romantic poetry, but they were also the first people to describe landscape as a connection of people with the place rather than place being utilitarian. Because landscape was really that, this is farming landscape or an industrial landscape. But their poetry was the first to get people to think about landscape as what it means to the people who live there and go there. Yeah. And we're trying to basically build on that with this. So we've produced these broadsheets.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, thank you. What an incredible journey. I'm very inspired by that full connection with wanting to work with others and to connect that way with art. It's incredibly inspiring, and the fact that you've also squeezed in further education, had the courage to sort of I'm going to do that, and mix it in with music and all types of different mediums. Whilst we have people online, if you have any questions, please do type them through, and we can get them read out, and hopefully I'm happy to answer those. Same with members of the audience. If you are here in person, if you want to have any questions, then please raise your hands. So I think we have a question on YouTube that Deb will read.
Yeah. So in terms of social prescribing, we know that our mental health services are really facing a tidal wave of people needing their help and support. So where do you think that the next step for social prescribing will come from? What do you think it needs to happen for it to grow and get to that kind of next stage?
I think probably not calling it social prescribing. Because I didn't mention I'm currently in a role where I'm working with town and parish councils to reduce health inequalities and funded by public health. And we have a lot of conversations about how we can communicate. You know, we talk about wider determinants of health and health inequalities. Well, that doesn't mean something to anyone, but we say what helps you live well, what helps you live and work well. I think for the policymakers and the commissioners, funding the destinations and actually, you know, thinking about. In fact, had an event today. I was talking about funding, how to access funding. We had National Lottery and Somerset Community Foundation on that call, and resources are dwindling. I mean, lots of charities and organisations are having their funding cut. We need to start talking to each other, working out where common ground are, where the gaps are, and actually saying, you know, how can organisations work together and share resources and say, look, you know, we're here to support people's well-being. There's some brilliant examples where I live in Glastonbury. There's an organisation that does gardening for well-being, and they've really thought creatively about it. So yes, you can come along to the gardening for well-being, but they've reached out to people who are working from home. How many people are working from home now? And they've got a day a week where they say, right, you're working from home, come and hot desk here with us. You have free Wi-Fi. Oh, by the way, if you want to come and do some gardening with us, come and do some gardening. So you've got social connection. So that could be similar, like for art activities or creative activities. It could be, you know, come along. And we've got brilliant mental health hub in Glastonbury where they have a it was a warm space, but actually it extends all year round now. So people can go along to the Red Brick Building, have a cup of tea, have some soup if they want soup. And there are mental health support teams there and connect. You know, basically the support services are there in that space for people to connect with, but they also have artists come along and run creative activities for people to join in if they want to. And there's just basic stuff like if you want to do some colouring, you can do it, or there's some clay work, or there's some textiles work or whatever. And it's an open space for people to drop in. And I think those sort of models might be more accessible to people than say, come and join a class, because people think if they don't go every week, or do you see what I mean? It's less structured because different people have got different needs. And I didn't mention either, because there's too many things to mention, my brain doesn't work in a linear fashion, is that I also train. I'm an ambassador for ADHD UK, and I'm also an ambassador for the Personalised Care Institute, which obviously promotes person-centred care. And there's a collaborative across the whole of the Southwest, so all the NHS organisations in the Southwest. We train health coaches in how to have personalised care conversation skills. And really asking what matters. So to support somebody, you have to ask what matters to them, because actually the priority for them could be, I haven't got anything to eat today, or my housing's in trouble. So it's actually trying to be understanding that, yes, you can put on a group, but the barriers to somebody accessing that group could be very different depending on your social, financial, education, even your demographic, your cultural circumstances, you know? So does that answer your question?
That's I think that model that you're talking about is really interesting. One of the things that obviously when you're delivering the project is obviously it can be time limited due to the funding. And people need access to something, or you don't know when you're going to fall over, as it were.
You don't, and that's the one thing that's frustrated and actually quite stressed me out quite a lot. And they say that Thriving Communities project, it was funded for 12 months and it stopped, as you know. It was quite traumatic for me, actually, knowing that I couldn't continue that work. It actually caused me quite a lot of trauma, because people were, you know, the Thriving Voices, which I didn't mention, that choir, that was people with respiratory conditions and from long COVID. If you watch that film, if you see the link, that film of that lady sitting on the steps of the Princess Theatre in Burnham, that, if anything, should say we need to fund these things.
Absolutely,
There's a lady whose life support machine was about to be switched off because of COVID, And her family said no, and I don't know how long it was. I think it was like 6 or 8 months later. She was sitting there on the steps of the Princess Theatre in Burnham, in a choir, learning how to breathe properly through singing. And that to me is so powerful. So I feel that anyone who's thinking about funding these things, they do more harm by saying we'll fund it for 8 months, we'll fund it for 8 weeks. Oh, come to an 8-week course, or come to, talking therapies, you get 6 sessions. That isn't long enough. And also it takes a while for people to build up their trust. I know when I went on to that art group in 2012, I just went along to say, oh, I wonder what it's like. And it took me about a year to actually feel like I felt I belong there. Do you know what I mean?
It gives you the impression that you should be able to fix something quite quickly, and that it can be done in a short space of time.
And also, this thing, the project I did, creating recovery, we're not broken. We need to play more, and we're not broken. We just need the right, it's like plants. You need the right support to nurture yourself and thrive. And if that's taken away from you, and the anxiety kicks in. I know. I went during that project. I went along to the National Academy for Social Prescribing show up in London at the South Bank Centre. Ryder Modgill invited me to talk on a panel with other projects that were funded, and there was an archaeology project in Hull, I think. Anyway, they were saying that there was real anxiety amongst the participants when they knew the funding was coming. So actually, the anxiety amongst the people in the group going, oh, well, it's going to be taken away from us in a few weeks. And then people start losing hope because they think, and actually it's more damaging.
Yeah.
So, it needs to be thought of as a sort of longer term, and actually also not stigmatizing people, because it should be accessible to everyone, because it supports everyone's well-being, not just people who've got a specific illness or specific label.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I think obviously the funding is difficult, but we're getting ourselves into that catch-22, aren't we? There's no funding for preventative or early intervention, or very little, because we're facing this, flood of people that need support, and so people are then getting to crisis point, and actually for it to be available, like you were saying, to be able to self-regulate and manage yourself so that you don't get to that point.
Yeah.
That's also really
a couple of years ago, I ran some workshops for the Glastonbury Trust on that sort of thing. Actually, it was a series of connected workshops called Creating Connection, Creating Kindness. What was the other one? It was basically about teaching people, first of all, to recognise what their emotional state was, and to accept how they were feeling without judgment, and then to work through some mindful practices and creative practices to help them process, but also to identify when they're feeling like that, to calm themselves and bring them back into their front brain.
Yeah.
And if people are equipped with those emotional intelligence and regulation skills, that can do a long way to help people stay in a place of well-being rather than tip back into crisis point. Yeah. And you can do that in many ways.
Sally Online has said, wow, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you, Anne.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, brilliant.
That's really kind. Thank you.
So I'd love to, for the artists out there that are inspired by your presentation, have you got any advice to them if they would like to get involved in this more the social prescribing side of art? Is there any tips you could give them to get involved with their own practice and working in this way?
Well, I'd say look at the National Academy for Social Prescribing site, because they've got loads of examples of things you can do.
Yeah.
See what's in your area.
Yeah.
There's some brilliant art support groups as well. Look after yourself as well, because one of the big things is looking after the artists, looking after the people, caring for the carers. It can be very the one thing that I did identify as both as a participant in some of these classes that I've been in and as a commissioner is it's all very well saying, great, we'll fund a group, for example, this poetry and art group. it is very, very likely that people who go along to those groups who have any kind of trauma or mild to moderate mental health challenges will unpack, it will bring up some stuff for them during the class. If the facilitators of those classes aren't trained, trauma informed, trained to support people in those instances and supported afterwards, I say supervision in the strongest term, actually, because supervision is seen as a sort of for counsellors, but actually the people who are doing the front facing work, they hear a lot of stuff, they see a lot of stuff. And it's like being a first aider. If you have seen somebody and you've dealt with it in the moment, you've got that adrenaline rush, you've got that, oh my God, what have I done? How can I support that person? They need support afterwards, otherwise they burn out. And I haven't mentioned it, I have written a book about burnout. I'm going to plug my book. I've written a book about turning the tables on burnout. So I do know about burnout, and Mind in Somerset did a brilliant. I've got a brilliant training course on. It's what's it called? Sorry, brain's gone. It's trauma, but it's my brain's gone now. It's been a long day. It's the second presentation of today. Trauma that's from somebody else's. I can't remember the right exact word. Do you know what I mean? So if you're hearing somebody else's stuff, you get traumatized by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So police officers, doctors, anyone in a caring or of a profession can burn out because they're hearing other people's or dealing with other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And they get to the point where they've got to put a boundary in place and a barrier in place, and that actually impacts how they deliver, how they support people.
Yeah.
So when we're actually thinking about these activities, we really have to think about the people delivering it, give them the right training support, and making sure they're okay as well. So what I would advise artists to do is, it's great that you run these activities, but make sure you know how to look after yourself as well.
That's great advice. Great. Thank you. How can people reach out to you? Best place to sort of find?
I guess Ann Diment Artist on Instagram.
Yeah.
And my stuff with the book and everything is Work Safe and Well.
Yeah, great. Okay. So that's the website, WorkSafe.
WorksafeandWell.co.uk.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got lots of blog posts on there and links to my podcast, which I didn't mention. I haven't recorded. I did one season called Creating Resilience. And that's interviewing people about what creativity means to them and how it's made them more resilient.
Yes, and you came to me for the artist surgery, and we're going to sort of look into ways of using digital technology to
develop that.
So that's another thing for people watching. If you are an artist based in Somerset and you'd like an artist surgery session with myself or one of my colleagues, do reach out. You can go onto the website, look for artist surgery session. I'll leave a link as well on this video, and you can get a free 3-hour session where we can explore all manner of different digital technology. We've done audio recording, we've done film editing. We're going to look at making music with the plant wave and exploring that, which we now have here at Somerset Film. So, but yes, please come and book a session if that's something that would interest you. And whilst we still got you online, the Artist in Residency. So you've got until the 10th of May, that's not long now, to put in your application. I've put a link on this YouTube live video for more information. But basically, if you're, again, an artist over 18 based in Somerset, and you have an idea that you'd like, a body of work that you'd like to create, being an artist in residence with us, we will support you with that. Throughout the months between June, July and August, I believe. There is a financial part of that as well that we will give you. But the main part is at the end in September, we will display that work. So it's a digital body of work that we want to create with you that will be displayed here in our new cafe/studio later on in the year. So if that excites you, that's something that's interesting to you, then there is a link to how you can apply for that. If you have any questions, just give me a call or email me, daniel@somersetfilm.com. Or if you want to meet up and discuss your potential idea, then please do. But yes, thank you so much for joining us online. I hope technically that was all good, but that fantastic.
Thank you, Deb,
for doing that. That's fantastic. And thank you, Anne. Just big round of applause for Anne.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And yes, we'll say goodbye to everyone online. Thank you once again, and we'll see you on the next Creative Network.